I believe this is going to be one of the most important conversations I've had in a while, just because of the impact this can have on your business, but also the industry as a whole as well. So Craig, if you could, thanks again for doing this. Just introduce yourself, what you do.
So yeah, you've met me, guys. My name's Craig from D Build Group. We do period heritage home extensions, renovations mainly, the occasional knockdown and new build of an architectural home on a period home that someone wants to get rid of. But we do probably 1 in 10 of those. We're in the Inner East, based in Kew, so most of our work is around the Inner East.
So I want to get into this value management conversation and its relevance to price shock and the times that we're in now. But let's start by you telling us that story about that project manager that you dealt with, and because that was interesting.
So I met a project manager a while ago through our school, actually, where our kids went to school, and he said, "Look, do you mind entering this tender process?" I said, "Look, I'll have a look at it." So we looked at the job, submitted our tenders. He came back to me and said, "Oh, look, you're about 700, 800 grand more than a couple of the other builders." And I said, "No, that's no problem, no worries." Anyway, when he selected the builder and they were working through the pre-construction phase to get to a contract, he realised that the other builder had left out about $500,000 worth of work to the initial part of the house. So he had quoted the new extension, which had a basement, everything to it, but he didn't quote anything on the existing property. So when he sort of got in deeper, he looked at things like joinery, the staircase, all these sorts of things. He started looking at it going, this isn't adding up, $80K for joinery when it's a $3 million home. Did his own sort of research on it and worked out this guy's left out a lot of stuff. So then he came back to me. He said, "Look, I want you to have a look at it again if you can." And I said, "No worries." And we looked at it, and I think, I was within maybe about 80K of my initial tender once the full docs got produced to me, and we're about to sign a contract, and away we go. And that was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So it took a long time for him to get to that point to work with that other builder and realise that his tender was really useless.
Gruesome discovery, like $500,000. I mean, you guys, I don't know, have you seen anything like that? But that's brutal. Just to give these guys some context, the project manager, and what makes it worse is he was tasked with finding his clients a builder and an architect, right?
Yep.
Is that correct? And then, so he would have, they've put him into bat on their behalf. So no doubt they have a lot of trust. They're putting a lot of faith in this guy.
Yep.
And then he's gone through this tender process and gone, okay, I've selected the right builder. And $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure all you guys have been through if you've ever gone down the tender road, or you still do tenders. And like these guys the estimators here would know that no tender's the same. We're not comparing apples with apples. And most people will go for the price and think that all builders are the same, and we're not the same.
Now there was another project. I think was this the same one with
No, this is a different project.
$2 million budget. Quotes came in. Yours and another builder's like 2.75 or 2.8.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was the last tender I did, which was a while ago now. But the last tender I did was that example where client had a budget of 1.9 to 2 mil. Both builders were very close. We were within 70 or 80 grand of each other. We were at 2.75. That client ended up selling that property and just went out and bought another house the next week. So they'd spent 18 months designing, or whatever it was, 12 months designing with the architect, finally got to a tender phase, and then got disappointed.
Very common as well, by the way. They could have redesigned, because you could have done something, but that would cost, what, 25 grand?
Exactly. So the architect put to them a value management option with trying to reduce it by $500,000 or 600, and they just said, well, we're not getting what we want now, so we're better off just finding another house in the area that's already done. And they literally went out the next weekend and bought a house.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm hearing stories every week right? In between our conversations about,
Yep.
like there's a couple in Bundaberg, the client's budget was $500,000, quotes came in at 1.4. I had a guy call me just before we spoke. Hey, the budget's 1.3, quotes coming at 3. Are you seeing anything similar? So it's just happening like every day of the week, right? So value management. So
Yep.
that's when you realized, hold on a sec, if I got involved at concept stage, you could have helped value manage in collaboration with the client and the architect to make that 2.8 mil project 2 mil, a 2 mil
Yeah,
project, align the budget with the reality.
absolutely. So just like we've been speaking about today with your pre-construction services, it made me realise that we probably don't do enough. We don't actively go out there within the industry and speak loudly enough to architects, designers, etc., to try and get on board early and get early contract engagement.
Mm.
So we're all talking about charging for quotes, etc. I've been trying to come up with a system or a method of my pre-construction services where it's a little bit more detailed than that. So we're offering basically a service where we have 3 different phases to that service, from basically your feasibility, and then you enter basically the value management structure of that, your pre-construction services.
It's like 3 steps, right?
3 steps.
So the initial steps are a little dab of toe in the water. Small.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
take us through them.
just to explain it, so the feasibility phase basically broken down into one step where we'll get introduced to the client, the architect or whoever's involved. We'll get the information on board. We'll have a look at it, and we'll spit out basically at the end of that. So with one meeting, one Zoom meeting, an introductory meeting, and getting all the information. There might be a few questions back and forward from me that I need, and then I'll just provide basically a concept price, which is through Procal. So really, it's not a hell of a lot of work for me to do.
Cost to client?
About $1,500.
Yeah, lunch money. If they're happy, so then they get a ballpark figure.
They get a ballpark figure.
Better than a ballpark figure. Like a pretty good indication of where it's going to land. Yep. But you can value manage anyway. You can make the numbers fit, right? What they want to spend. So then, if they want to proceed, though, the next step it's more comprehensive.
The next phase, will cost them somewhere between 6 and 10 grand. But you're working with them probably for the 12 months or whatever it takes through design, right? Because we're really early on in the process. There's a lot of hurdles you've got to jump through. So you are committed to them. And then we sort of break it down into small phases inside that pre-construction services. So we'll do kind of like a structural review at the start, and we'll have a look at it from just basically a size, because they've already got the price, whether it sits. They'll come back to us and say, well, we need to value manage straight away. Like we need to drop this a little bit, or no, that's roughly where we need to sit. Or we might have a little bit more where it's where
the structural. Sorry to cut in, like the footprint of the job.
Yeah.
And then you had that example where I think the architect was going to bring the wall in by 1/2 meter, and it was going to, which would hardly impact the final outcome of the project, but reduce the cost by $150,000. Right?
Exactly. So
examples like that, which you guys would have seen before, right?
We went away. Someone needs to make some changes on a job that we'll be doing in Melbourne later next year, and they jumped on board, right? The architect, because we've signed up. They're like, okay, how can we help? So they went away and looked at the footprint, and they said, look, if we brought everything in 1/2 meter or so, did this, maybe we get rid of that galley laundry, little tweaks. What's that going to do? And then I went away and looked at it, priced it, and sort of said, look, you've probably saved 150, 200 grand by not really doing much. Like they haven't lost bedrooms or bathrooms, etc. So straight away we look at the structure component. I'll have a bit of a look at it over anything that I think is going to be quite costly in the structure. As a builder, we should know where they're going to put their money in the structure, and then we can change it. So that's the initial phase, right? We're looking at the structure, the footprint. Do we have to reduce? Is there any areas that I feel can save the client some money?
From there, it's architecturals, right?
From there, they'll go away and get all their engineering and stuff done with confidence that they've made just to the footprint. They can get their prelims done, like the prelim engineering, etc. And then we're breaking it down into, we call it like the value management phase. So then whilst all the the engineering is getting done. We're looking at, you know, the interiors, that sort of structure,
Windows and doors,
claddings,
systems,
windows.
yeah.
We're looking at the job as a whole, and that's where a lot of the work consists. But once again, we've broken down into 2 meetings per category. Anything outside of that is $200 a meeting, because it's outside of the scope, right? So if we get sort of stuck on something and the client really wants to focus in on kitchen joinery or the type of sliding doors they want or whatever it is, and we can't quite get it in the initial scope, and we have to have another meeting with the architect client, we're charging extra for the extra meetings.
Yeah. And the client's response, obviously, like from the conversations we've had, is like, so they're impressed. They're suitably impressed. Like, oh, wow, we didn't realize you could make that change and have that sort of impact on the numbers.
Yep.
And that's happening. So there's gratitude. They're like, wow. So you like demonstrating expertise, trust and credibility goes up. They feel grateful because that's it. I mean, 150K, it's a significant amount of money. But you're doing that plus smaller versions of that all the way through the value management process, right?
Yeah, and we're sort of putting tangibles there. It's not just the architect talking to the client saying, oh, we might be able to reduce the cost by this. It's actually going straight to a builder and saying, hey, will this reduce any cost? Is it worth them making this change or not?
Yeah. So this, just for you guys listening, like you all do value management already, right? This is not a new thing. What Craig's done is he's packaged it up. There's a certain number of calls, of meetings, and they're on Zoom, right? Not necessarily face to face. And you know, there's a framework within which he delivers this value management service outside of that $200 or whatever hourly rate on top of that, right? Which ideally you want to get this to be a standalone product because it's helping and having such a big impact. We'll get to that later, but the thing that I love with it is at the end of it, so say you've done 12 or 13 changes in collaboration with the architect and the client, at the end of that process, it's, you tell me, near impossible for them to go to tender now because it's looking through your unique lens, which by the way, no architect, designer, engineer, QS can do what you do as a builder. Only you have that lens, that set of points of reference to be able to value manage and align costs, right, with the reality. So it's a very unique skill that you have that you already use, just haven't packaged up. So therein lies the opportunity, right? So, and price shock at the moment, big problem. This is a big solution, right?
Yeah.
So what this all means though, is it becomes a one-horse race.
Yeah, it is.
It's a one builder tender process. So you eject yourself from the tender process, which I've got a builder in Melbourne that's done that. They haven't done a competitive tender for 4 years, but that's because of their relationships with architects. This is where you can cement it through a process that significantly benefits the client. Obviously, they want to spend 2 million, sure, they spend 2 mil plus together they want, right? And then the architect isn't sitting red-faced after, you know, they're spending 18 months with the client and they've spent 80 or 100 grand and they can't proceed. Which is in some architecture firms, 70% of their designs don't get built. All right, you guys heard that? Sorry, so the clients are happy, and you've been through this entire process already now with some people, right?
Yep, definitely. And then basically you get to the final stage of that pre-construction services, which is supplying a tender. And that's literally, you've worked through the whole process, you supply them the price. And we call the third stage contract signing because it literally is, you know, we're ready to go, we're starting to build. So that's really the service. I mean, the thing is, like Kurt was saying, I looked into it because I thought, we kind of do this already. Like, we already do this. Like, architects or whoever will come to us and we'll help them value manage anyway, right? So I thought, I think it needs to stand out a little bit more from our end, that we are actually providing heaps of value to architects, more than what they actually realise. And I haven't had brilliant reception with all architects. Some are like, nah, we just tender. It's like, cool, that's okay. You know, we can't help you with tenders anymore. So 90%, 80% are like, wow, this sounds great. And really, at the end of the day, most architects, you know, if you're building, we're in sort of that 1.5 to 3 range is our sweet spot. Most people are spending 100 odd grand with an architect. What's another 10 grand to find out how much it costs?
To get it to align, yeah. I mean, as someone, like I've bought a lot of properties, done a lot of work, to know what I'm going to get and then be able to spend what I want to spend, it's like I mean, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to do that if you're about to spend money on a project, on a property that in most cases increases the equity value, right? There's upside potential with equity value. So it's like you spending a small amount to give you that peace of mind to proceed with a project that's going to
Yeah.
make you money. It's just like a no-brainer. So from a client perspective, huge win. Uh, 89% architects. So I got a text from someone this morning. We've got guys sending out emails just talking about price shock, big problem. By the way, here's an article from Domain who's owned by Fairfax, and there's a Financial Review article as well talking about 53% increase since January 21 in build costs, right? So your margin's got nothing to do with them not affording whatever it is that when the quote comes through. He got a 65% open rate with an email blast. Someone sent out to 400 architects. You got 53% open rate. Like I could ask your marketing strategist if that's a good open rate for emails, Jamie, off the chart. Not just good like crazy town.
It's still, well, most people working 20% is good, so that's still
20 is good. You can, yeah. So that's telling you the architects are seeing value. So from a client perspective, off the chart value, architects lunging because they sitting there red face a lot of the time. And then would you guys love to exit from the tender process? Can you see how it's like the trifecta? Boom. So, and the other thing that in order for that value management process to work, the client needs to be 100% honest and open. They need to tell you what they want to spend. They need to tell you what they do and don't want. Do they want the gym? No, we'll get rid of the gym. We'll, you know what I mean? Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you've got the perfect client, open and honest and collaborating with you, and then the architect's in there as well. But at the end of it, everyone's happy.
Correct. Yeah.
Why doesn't everyone do it? If every builder has a specialty or a niche and then offers this value management process, why wouldn't that just become standard procedure? Let's get rid of the tender process, guys. So in terms of optimization, right? Like marketing optimization, because you're not going to have to go out there, and you still need to market. You still need to showcase what you do and let people know that you exist and have your brand and everything. But it's obviously going to free up time. Today's all about freeing up time. What are you looking at doing? Like, this is obviously going to free up time for you. This becomes standard procedure.
Yep. So there's a few things that we've spoken about. I'm working on. The business is creating like basically my own specification list for all trades. So all your carpenters on site, if you guys got carpenters working for you, etc. So as I get the job coming in, literally dissect every trade for that project and make a specification list for each trade. And what their roles are at each level. So say your carpenters from basically site set out all the way through to fit off is giving them what that job should consist of. So that just dumb it down basically so that literally through every phase they don't really need to know what's happening because I should have spelled out everything that needs to go on for that job. Same with the tilers, plasterers. Is there miters? Is there this? Is there that? So you can literally give out every specification for that project before it starts to each trade, and they'll know the roles that they have to perform on that job.
Brilliant. So that's something that's like just being able to take things up to another level. And the other thing was the client experience.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So putting time and energy and focus and resource into improving the client experience.
I spoke to Angus before.
Yeah.
Around client portals. I feel like we're lacking a little bit in that area in terms of I have one at the moment, but it's not fantastic. So we're looking at trying to engage the client more throughout the job. With videos and photos and just communication. So if you do a site meeting every 2 weeks, you document it. They get a printout of that. There's photos from that site meeting to show them what we looked at, what we discussed. Just be a little bit more, front of mind, I think, with client, because really at the end of the day, for a client to have a good job, they say it's communication, right? Like they mostly say that, well, the builder doesn't talk to me. I don't know what's happening.
Of the industry.
It's cost too much money or money. And the last one's a time factor, right? Everyone's got to be in by Christmas. So, it's those three things. And if, that's why this process I find eliminates nearly all three, because you already know the personality of the client throughout the process. You've known them for like 9 months. You already know their budget. You already know if they've got contingencies outside of that budget.
Yeah. You've demonstrated expertise. You've given them all that sort of dopamine, and that because every time you show them another way to save money and match the thing, and you help them basically.
Yep.
Then they like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then it just builds the trust, and at the end of the day, it makes the project run a hell of a lot more smoothly because
Yeah.
everyone's on the same page.
And that client experience, by the way, that's marketing, because most builders are notoriously bad at communicating, and it's not because they're bad at communicating, just don't have time running around. When are you going to go, okay, and I can proactively communicate with these people, send them photos, do it in a structured way. You'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
Why is it marketing? They're going to go tell family and friends. Like, I've seen this happen exceptionally well. And the impact it has when you do proactively communicate. And there's a story I'll talk about with this company in Sydney, Rick, that had female project managers that were very proactive with the communication and did all the client communication. Clients enjoyed the build experience. And then they would go to their kids' netball or cricket on the weekend going, we're disappointed the project's over because we're enjoying ourselves so much. We're having so much fun. People are like, WTF, what are you talking about? Like, how can it be fun to renovate? So, and then they get this avalanche of referrals, which are your best inquiries. But tell us a bit about your, like the level of outsourcing. So through the value management process, you're outsourcing use of technology and automation, if any.
Yep. Yeah. So through this, obviously, we use ProCalc to start because it's really easy to use, pretty accurate. And it takes about an hour, I think, not even half an hour to do a job, and it spits out the concept price for them. So we use that. I still do the estimating myself at the moment, but the vision for this is to set it up as basically a business inside mine. Like, I only need a small amount of builds a year out of it, but hopefully this will take off, and I can set it up as another business. So it'll be outsourcing the actual final tender and estimation to people like Hayden, etc. I'm also looking at, if it does grow, which I think it's going to, outsource, the structural review component of it. I don't need to sit there and look at the plan from a structural review point of view, have someone else looking at those. So it's looking at it so that basically I'm just getting the reports and giving them to the client and spending as little time in that as possible.
So the process lends itself to a one horse race. So it's a one builder tender process. For most people, that would be enough. But there's the opportunity to make it a standalone product or service, right? Yep. So that's ideally where you want to head. And you just got to price it accordingly. And really what you're selling is air. Like, if you can step back a little and outsource and automate, then if you're charging 10, 12, 15,000 bucks, like if someone's going to drop 2 million on a bill, that's chicken feed. I mean, you spoke to your father-in-law. What did he say to you? When you explained this process to him?
I explained it to him, and he said, "Oh, it sounds great." He goes, "Are you sure you're charging enough?" And he said, "That sounds too cheap, really." At the end of the day, if you're going to align the client's budget with what they want to build, and you're going to work with them for 9 or 12 months, that sounds too cheap. So,
and he also said he couldn't imagine why everyone who's going to build wouldn't want to use follow that process, right?
Yeah, I think they would. It's just not the norm, right? If anyone here, most of you will probably work in the architectural space. Yeah, it's really the projects and the vision's run by the architect. Right? Everyone trusts the architect. They don't trust the builder.
Yeah,
it's just the way the industry is.
So educating them.
It's just educating it and getting it out there. And if enough architects say, look, this is the best method for the best project and client satisfaction at the end, why wouldn't they use it and align themselves with builders? I don't really understand. There's some people out there already doing it. Most guys probably are doing it. Some here are probably doing the same thing. It's just about packaging it up and make it stand out a bit more, I think.
Which is a leadership thing. It's taking the lead to package it up and then helping them see the benefit to them of early builder involvement.
Yeah.
In their pre-construction process. Yeah. What's your view on its potential and impact on the industry? Do you reckon, if people took?
Well, I mean, hopefully it's something that's almost a given in that space as well. In the architectural space, I feel like I think it's essential,
Mm.
personally. For me anyway, in my business, I think we're going down the line now, and I'm not pricing too many jobs at all, really, because we're focusing on this. At the 2 or 3 or 4 jobs that come in, we know once we qualify them, we know that they're 100% pretty much going to be a job.
Yeah.
So if it was a industry sort of standard or close to it, we'd be all playing off a pretty even field.
And then once you, like, say you need 4 or 5 jobs next year, if you're doing 10 of these,
Yep.
you can't do them all.
No,
And then you can find a way to outsource.
which is what we spoke about. You
Yeah.
can align yourself with other trusty builders. They're going to love you because you've done all the hard work for them. The figures will stack up for anybody, because it'll be that accurate, the pricing with the work you put in, so that other builders will.
A dream
lap it
come
up.
true. Imagine that, just handed to you on a platter, sort of thing.
Yep.
And then obviously the client's happy as well. But then you get to cherry pick your
Well,
jobs.
that's
You
the
can go,
key.
"Hey, maybe we should do this one. This
Yeah.
could be, yeah."
Yeah, the key would be to just obviously do this process and then cherry pick the ones you really want to build, because of obviously the client, the area, profitability.
You can even select based on workflow, because like what I do is all about optimization, trying to optimize efficiency, what's the best process, but also proactivity. Like, if you got a handle on your time management, self-management, you're very proactive. You're looking ahead, you've got the next 3 months mapped out, you're looking into 2025, whatever it is, and you can project forward with your team structures, with your financials, with your business development. This is like an ultimate form of proactivity, because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And you, in the power seat, you pick and choose, but you're delivering a incredible amount of value at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, we think so.
Craig, thanks a million, man. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.